Hello doctors, let's study about acclimatization and decompression sickness in this video, the continuation of that competency, where we studied artificial respiration, we studied oxygen therapy in a huge and detailed manner, and the last two topics, acclimatization as well as decompression sickness. Small topic, less concepts, easily can be studied. First thing first, you need to know what is acclimatization, for which you got to know what is high altitude, what will happen to a subject in high altitude, and how body adjust itself for survival in that high altitude. First thing people, please understand, when we call something called as mean sea level, it says that we are living in a average altitude, a regular normal altitude, and this is altitude, this is what is called as normal or mean sea level. Mean sea level, alright. Now if someone lives just 500 meters above mean sea level, we do not consider this as altitude at all. This is called as near sea level. Alright, so people living in slightly higher altitude regions, a small mountain range and everything, very small hill station, these kinds of living are called as near sea level living. Alright, just 500 meters above mean sea level. That's near sea level people. If someone goes to a altitude about 500 meters all the way to 2000 meters, this is called as altitude living, and this altitude is what is called as low altitude. Please remember, low altitude doesn't mean living beneath the mean sea level. Low altitude is mean living slightly above the mean sea level at an altitude of 500 meters all the way to 2000 meters. In this low altitude life, the subject will experience impairment of aerobic performance. The living is going to be very normal. They can have a very normal life. They can, wake up, they can take bath, they can walk, they can do their routine course and everything. But if the subject tries to jog or tries to run or tries to cycle, that's difficult because the quantity of oxygen is going to be a little bit less and the effort is going to be comparatively higher than the same effort is used in the mean sea level people. So this subject will have an impairment of aerobic performances, but still the subject could be able to do, and this impairment are quite noticeable, that is all. It doesn't mean he can't jog, he can't cycle, he can do it but with difficulty. Between an altitude of 2000 meters all the way to 3000 meters, which we call something as moderate altitude, at this altitude the subject will have a serious reduction for athletic performance. There is going to be a serious compromise. Now the subject go for something called as acclimatization. The body is not going to be the same. The body has to adjust itself in a huge way in order to facilitate the subject's athletic performance, not normal living. Normal living is going to be very fine, guys, not at all a problem. By 3000 meters to 5500 meters of altitude, we call something as high altitude. Here there is going to be impossibility for aerobic performances. The subject has to go for serious amount of acclimatization, alright, and this acclimatization is not for heightened aerobic activity, for normal survival itself. So a routine normal performance itself will require acclimatization if the subject is living in high altitude. In a moderate altitude, this acclimatization is needed not for normal living but for athletic performances, that is all. That's the difference. In a moderate altitude, living is fine, but athletic performance requires acclimatization. In high altitude, living itself requires acclimatization, guys. And if the altitude is above 5500 meters, like Himalayas, Siachen range and everything, this altitude is called as extreme altitude. At this point, the subject will, even though there is an acclimatization process, there is going to be a gradual clinical deterioration. There is a gradual clinical deterioration, and this life which subject lives in such a high altitude requires very careful meticulous acclimatization by the body, as well as they need lots and lots of support from the environment. So the weather has to be controlled, the nutrition has to be controlled, the fluid balance has to be controlled. This cannot happen with just body changes alone. This takes a hell lot of adjustments on the environmental side. Support is very much needed for even survival, which is why soldiers are given special meals, soldiers are given special, costumes, they have a kind of a different winter jackets and everything. It's a different life and it's a different environment, people. So extreme altitude is very, very, very different. Here there is going to be a clinical deterioration itself that can happen, right? The patient will go for, compromised survival. All right, that's different levels of altitude and what is going to happen at different level. We have near sea, we have low, moderate, high and extreme. All right, and you have just learned what is happening, people.